Room 5, time for Wonderland. The first chapter is called Mavis. Mavis couldn't remember the last time she had such an adventure. Once, back in Georgia, when Janelle Bolt was sleeping over, they sneaked out of the house after her mother went to bed and gone up to the 7-Eleven to buy candy. But on the way back home, the cops had stopped them and told that two little girls shouldn't be out alone so late at night. They had taken Janelle and her home in their patrol car, and then woken her mother up. Oh boy, that had been a scene. No wonder Janelle never wanted to come over to her house again. But it had been nothing compared to this adventure. Amanda had agreed to leave her bike for them beside her garage, so now Rose and Mavis were walking the bikes through the woods on their way to the highway. Rose had a million questions, and Mavis had an answer for every one of them. How were they going to get across the highway? Easy. They'll walk along the edge until they got to a stoplight. How were they going to find Palomito Road? No problem. There weren't that many roads in Laundry. It shouldn't be hard. What were they going to do when they got to Wonderland? They'll find someone in charge and tell them they wanted to see Henry. On and on and on. A million questions. Mavis led the way, pushing Amanda's bike through the woods, weaving in and out of the prickly bush, and occasionally lifting the bike over fallen trees until they reached a clearing. There below a grassy ravine was a highway. Her insides swirled with excitement, but one look at Rose told her that Rose's insides were not swirling with excitement. Rose looked like she was ready to turn her bike around and head for home any minute. Mavis knew she had to act fast. Come on, she said. Let's ride down to where the stoplight is. Then she jumped on her bike and pedalled as fast as she could down the ravine and along the edge of the highway. Every now and then she glanced behind her to make sure Rose was following. Hurry up, she called to Rose, who was falling further and further behind. When she got to the stoplight, she waited for Rose to catch up. If everything went according to her plan, they would find Wonderland over there on the other side of the highway. Then they would find out where Henry was. She was sure that everything about her plan was perfect. Rose. As Rose pedalled hard to keep up with Mavis, she once again had that feeling that there were two Roses. One was the scared Rose, scared to be here riding a bike along the edge of a busy highway with cars zooming by so fast the wildflowers danced in the breeze when they passed. Scared that her mother was going to find out about this very un-Rose-like thing she was doing. Scared that even if they found Henry, and even if Henry needed a home, Mr. Duffy wouldn't want him and would be unhappy with her. Mr. Duffy had never been unhappy with her before. But then there was another Rose. A Rose who was thrilled with this wild adventure. A Rose who was brave as her best friend Mavis. A Rose who wished her sister could be here now. But when she finally caught up with Mavis and found herself crossing the busy highway at the stoplight, that second Rose quickly disappeared. Why had she let Mavis talk her into this? But it was too late to turn back now. They were already across the highway and Mavis was hollering, "Follow me!" And so she did. She followed Mavis up one street and down another, through the neighbourhoods and with small brick houses and tidy yards where kids played in the street stared at them as they pedalled by. Past a car repair shop, a tattoo parlour, a florist and a barber shop. Past Brookhaven Baptist Church and Patton Road Car Wash and Miss Banner's Daycare Centre. Then they turned a corner and suddenly Mavis squealed, "There it is!" Sure enough, looming ahead was a large sign reading Wonderland Greyhound Park. Mavis let out a whoop and motioned for Rose to follow her through the empty parking lot and right up to the entrance gate beside the ticket booth. Mavis jumped off her bike and jiggled the gates. Locked. Rose felt a wave of relief wash over her. "It's closed," she said to Mavis. "We should leave." "No way! There's people in there." Rose peered through the fence. Inside the park were folks wearing red caps or t-shirts with Wonderland on them. Some were walking dogs that looked a lot like Henry. "Hey!" Mavis called through the gate. No one seemed to notice. "We should leave," Rose said again, glancing back in the direction of the highway. She reached into her pocket and rubbed Grace's silver dollar. Mavis waved and hollered at folks inside Wonderland until finally some woman with bushy grey ponytail under her Wonderland cap came over to the gate and asked Mavis what she wanted. "We're looking for a dog," Mavis said. "A rescue dog?" the woman asked. Mavis's face lit up. "Yes, a rescue dog. Right, Rose?" Rose nodded. "Do you have an appointment?" the woman asked. Rose couldn't believe her ears when Mavis said, "Yes." Mavis sure was a good fibber. She didn't even look one bit guilty. Rose felt a wave of admiration. The woman unlocked the gate, and just like that, Rose and Mavis were inside Wonderland. Mavis could hardly believe how great this adventure was turning out. She had actually found Wonderland, and now she'd convinced someone to let them in. Wonderland was a hustle-bustle of activity. Everywhere Mavis looked were dogs. Dogs on leashes, dogs in kennels, dogs playing in the grassy fenced areas, and all the dogs looked like Henry, with long skinny legs and long pointing noses. Mavis kept saying to Rose, "Isn't this cool?" and "Oh, did you see that?" Rose would nod or shrug. Mavis wished Rose was having as much fun as she was, but it didn't seem like she was. The woman with the bushy grey ponytail led them to a cinder block building. "Here you go," she said. Mavis leaned her bike against the building and went inside, motioning for Rose to do the same. Inside, the air was damp and smelt like dogs. Along each side were rows of kennels. Inside most of the kennels were barking dogs. A greyhound, like Henry, at each of the kennel was a small door that led to the outside kennel. Roger, the man who picked Henry up in the van, was washing metal bowls. "Can I help you all?" he said. "I don't have any appointments until tomorrow." "We're looking for a dog," Mavis told him. "Got an appointment?" Roger asked. Mavis couldn't think of a good fib, so she said, "We're looking for that white dog with a brown spot on the side." "Ah, you're the ones who found the rascal who ran off." The man dried his hands on his jeans. Mavis nodded. "His name is Henry, and we found him, and he really loves us, but Mr. Duffy called to have him picked up. Right, Rose?" Rose nodded. Roger chuckled. "His name is Alabama Rocket Boy, and he's a naughty one." "Alabama Rocket Boy? What kind of name was that for a dog?" "Can we see him?" Mavis asked. Roger led them down the row of kennels. When they got to the last one, which was empty, Roger whistled. Sure enough, Henry came leaping through the little door from outside and darted over to the front of the kennel, wagging his tail and whining with excitement at the sight of Rose and Mavis. "Hey, Henry," Mavis said, stooping and putting her hands through the chain link for him to sniff. Henry wagged his tail so hard his whole body wagged. "He remembers us," Mavis said. Rose ran her hand along Henry's nose. Mavis told Roger how she and Rose had found Henry in the woods and taken him to Mr. Duffy. "We wanted Mr. Duffy to keep him, but he said Henry belonged here." "Well, if you all want a dog, you'll have to come to the right place," Roger said. "Old Rocket Boy here is ready for adoption." "Is he?" Mavis turned to Rose. "See, I told you. I knew it." Then she turned back to Roger and said, "Well, take him." Rose gave her wide-eyed look and said, "But you can't just take him," Roger said. Mavis stood up. "Why not?" Roger told Rose and Mavis about the Wonderland Adoption Centre. The dogs were greyhounds who had lived their whole lives here at the racetrack. They'd been trained to run since they were puppies. When they were ready to race, they lived in the race kennels. But by the time the dogs were 3 or 4 years old, they were too old to race anymore. "Too old?" Mavis said. Yep, they slow down like Rocket Boy. He nodded towards Henry. He's got a bum hip too. A few years of hard racing will do that sometimes. Then what happens when they get too old? Then they're ready for adoption, Roger said. I'll try my best to find a good home. Really? Mavis looked at Rose. Then we'll adopt him, right, Rose? Well, now, Roger said. It doesn't happen like that. For one thing, you'll have to have a grown-up with you. And then there's the paperwork and the interviews and the home inspection and stuff. Mavis felt his shoulders droop. All her careful planning hadn't included this. Now what? How would she and Rose get Henry and Mr. Duffy together?